All right, so it is July in Tennessee and it is hot. I mean, the heat index has been like 110. We've been melting here. So I thought this is a great opportunity to hop on and give you some Tennessee tips for what you should be doing in your garden in July. Now, a lot of you in different zones might actually find these helpful too. I am in zone 7A/7B. It's kind of changed recently. I don't really know which one I am. I'm in that region. And what that means for me is we have really wet, kind of cool springs that get 9 frackin' million degrees so stinking fast. Ooh, did you see that twirl move? Wow. I wish I had hair. If I had hair, that'd have been so much more dramatic. But anyway, so I thought I would cover a few little garden tests that you should definitely consider doing in July so that you have a beautiful, gorgeous, well-rounded garden all season long, okay? And the first one is water your garden. Now, I know that seems so silly. Obviously, you should be watering your garden, but I think for our area, what happens a lot is spring is very wet. Winter here is also wet, and then fall is typically wet. I live in a fairly high rainfall area, so I live in the portion of Tennessee, I live in Middle Tennessee, and I'm on the Appalachian foothills. So if you literally just go one county over, we are technically a deciduous rainforest, and that means we get obscene amounts of waterfall. If you've ever seen the Smoky Mountains, that is considered, or at least our area of it is considered, a deciduous rainforest, which means it's just trees that lose their leaves, but it gets loads of rainfall. So my garden and my farm gets loads and loads of rainfall as I'm right on that cusp. Literally, like I could and hit a rainforest. So it's very lush and green, and that's part of why I love Tennessee. But what does happen, and sometimes it blindsides me because I'm like not expecting it, and it's just like all of a sudden it's like bam, hits you like a freaking truck. Vicious, absolutely wild. So it gets hot and then it gets dry really quick. So July and August typically are very hot and dry for me. So I do not really irrigate my garden. I used to irrigate regularly, and as a ex-flower farmer, we broke up. My field was always irrigated, and I would find that I only ever turned on my irrigation about 2 to 5 times. It just depended on the season. So historically, I've been having some really wet summers lately. I also live on river property. Hold up, let's go. Oh my gosh, it looks like a hot mess over there. But this is my cow, Moodini, because she escapes all the time. And then I have this giant pond back here, and then that tree line back there backs up to a river. So my property just be staying super duper wet, and I don't really need a ton of watering because the water table is very high here, and the roots go down, and everything stays really great and green and blah, blah, blah. But in a raised bed garden situation, that is not the case for July and August. So I have been watering pretty constantly, so definitely water your garden. So if you are in Tennessee or pretty much really anywhere, these months typically get very hot and dry, and your plants are going to need a lot of water. My preferred watering time is early in the morning. That gives the plants plenty of time to soak up all the water. So drink. You want your plants like getting crunk on some water. You know what I'm saying? Like water deep, all right? But then turn it off, especially if you're using overhead watering, because what happens is all that water just be lingering on the leaves. You want to make sure you water in the morning so that the sun comes out, dries out the leaves, and that your roots aren't sitting in water and your leaves aren't sitting in wet, because that promotes fungal growth and all sorts of yucky stuff in your garden that you just do not want to have in your garden. So definitely water in the morning. If you can't water in the morning, I mean, it's not the end of the world, right? Like sometimes I get bold, I get wild, I get crazy, and I just watered tonight. You can actually see that water line. You see where that's dry and that's wet. I watered tonight because I forgot to water in the morning, and I was like, them plants looking crispy. This guy over here, crunchy as hell. I mean, crunchy as heck. And let's just say that if I didn't water, I didn't know they was gonna seed the next day, you know? So water your plants in July and August, obviously, but that's the best way to water them. Next up, we are talking about sowing things. So I have not done this yet. Otherwise, I would show you like a gorgeous like little seed tray and I'd be like boop, 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 putting seeds in. But I have not done this yet because I'm a filthy hypocrite. I am a hypocrite. But July is the month that I sow a lot of my cooler weather crops. So think Brussels sprouts. I love to sow Brussels sprouts this time of year. This is when you might consider broccoli, anything that you're hoping to grow in the fall. So kale, etc. You're gonna wanna pot up. I transplant everything out. So I start it inside where it's cooler. It's much easier for me to start these seeds inside because a lot of them like cooler germination temperatures than it is outside. I mean, 100-degree temperature day, like my broccoli ain't trying to germinate in that. You know what I'm saying? So I start them inside, get them going and growing so that they can be planted out later in the season so I can have a lovely, gorgeous fall harvest. I think a lot of people drop off on this bit because they're busy harvesting their corn, their tomatoes, their vegetables, and they're like, oh, look at my garden, I'm tired. I've picked so many zucchinis, I could literally die. I'm so sick of zucchini bread. I'm so sick of zucchini casserole. So I think a lot of people fall off. They forget that fall gardens are really wonderful. So this is a great time to start sowing those seeds so you can have really amazing fall gardens. And especially in Tennessee, kale is a biggie for me. I love to plant kale because kale, I do have some kale plants right there and then over there, and they're cranking still. They're getting really buggy right now and they're getting lifted up, but this is the time to plant more. And then I will literally have these kale plants almost all the way through winter until we start getting those really, really cold days. So kale can take me easily with just a light amount of protection all the way through the fall, well past the frost date, which is great. So you can have lots of greens in your garden. So this is the time to start those greens. Now, I have not done it, so this is a do as I say, not as I do. Maybe we'll do a video on which ones I'm starting next. Comment below, tell me if you'd be interested in that. A little seed starting video. I am not maybe the best videoer, but I think we can do it, all right? Some of these how-to videos are gonna be challenging because I don't know what to do with my hands and I can't hold the camera at the same time. And let's just be real, I don't look so attractive from this angle. Like, this is not, yeah. Next up, it's harvesting and processing. So again, I think people, these things seem so simple, but I think they fall off, okay? So tomatoes are growing. I've got loads of tomatoes coming in and I'm starting to harvest them. And this is a big key, right? A lot of times you're not gonna be able to eat all these things. So this is a really important time to harvest everything. So harvest your corn crops. My corn crop is nowhere near ready. I planted this guy really late. So that's not an option for me. But a lot of times your harvest is coming in. Okra should be coming in, corn, you know, tomatoes, peppers. And this is your time that you can start actively preserving these items. So you're probably gonna see cucumbers. This is when you need to start making your pickles. You need to start making your salsas. You need to start making your sauces. And these items are gonna help get you through winter and really get the most out of your garden. I know it seems so hot and you're like, I do not want to stand over a stove. If I have to blanch a tomato, I'm going to lose my crap. But I'm promising you, once you get into it in the fall and in the winter, you're gonna be thanking yourself so much. It's also gonna cut your food bill down so much. So definitely, this is the time to start processing and preserving your harvest so that you can enjoy it well into the season. Also, if you haven't harvested your garlic yet, I typically harvest garlic in June here. But if you haven't harvested your garlic yet, by July, you need to be pulling that sucker out because it's time, okay? It's time. Especially if you see like half of the leaves are green up top, half of the leaves are brown on the bottom, or if the whole thing's brown, straight up. It needs to go. It just needs, pull it up, okay? So this is the time to really start enjoying the bounty. Definitely do some cookouts, eat the fresh produce, but you're going to have a lot of excess more than likely. So make sure you're preserving that excess so you can continue to enjoy it later. And then regardless, make sure things aren't going to waste. Even if you don't want to preserve the excess, remember, lots of areas in the country do not have secure sources of food. Food is very expensive right now. It just keeps going up and going up. So share your abundance, you know, give it to friends, give it to coworkers. I know everybody and their mom is trying to give away zucchinis. But consider giving it away and enjoying it. That's another really fun way to, you know, really enjoy the bounty of your garden, is by charitable giving. So definitely harvest. All right. So now we're getting into some of the really, really fun stuff. This is a must. I do this every single July, and a lot of people don't do this. Okay. So it's time to plant pumpkins. And again, I don't have a cute little seed tray or even the packets because I am behind. All right. I am perpetually behind. So basically, anything I say to do it a month before I tell you to do it. Now, lots of pumpkins are perfect, like ideal to start right now. So if you have a 100-day pumpkin or 90-day pumpkin, 80-day pumpkin, July is a great time to start it, because what happens is a lot of people get really overzealous and excited. And on April 15th, which is our last frost date here in my zone, sometimes April 20th, depending on the year, they go out and they just plant everything. And that includes pumpkins. So as you can see, my garden is very tiny. We are not planting pumpkins at this moment, but we are about to. So I'm going to put up a fun little trellis situation in this area right over there, like over this little blue chair right here. You'll see, it's gonna be glorious. It's gonna be so beautiful. And I'm probably gonna take a little bit of this space right here in this little side yard. Pumpkins, okay? I love pumpkins. I grow so many pumpkins. When I had a flower farm, pumpkins was one of the products I diversified in. So I grew rows and rows and rows of pumpkins, and I grew all the heirloom fairy tale type pumpkins. And I learned in that process that you don't plant pumpkins in April. If you plant pumpkins in April, you end up with pumpkins that are harvesting about now, and sometimes August. And what that's going to mean for you is you're going to have way out of season pumpkins, right? So there's nothing wrong with doing that if you want to do it, because pumpkins are a delicious food source. They can be really delicious in soups. You can easily puree the pumpkin and save it to use. But if you're looking to have pumpkins for like the vibes in spooky season in October, you need to be planting them now, not any earlier, okay? So plant them out now, and what you're going to end up with, particularly for anything that's 100-day or less, you're going to have pumpkins that are ready right before the frost time here. And that is going to give you the optimal chance of having amazing pumpkins for Halloween. So you can use it for decor, you can use it all fall long. And pumpkins, a lot of pumpkins store really, really well. So by harvesting them in that cooler season, in that October month, you are going to end up being able to probably store those for a couple months. So while everything else is going on in your garden in July and stuff, you're not worrying about trying to process pumpkins so that they are like staying fresh and good. You're not trying to like be out here pureeing pumpkin, etc. Because pumpkins store pretty well on their own. You just cure them, find a nice cool space, and boop them in there, and ta-da! It's just so simple to do. So definitely, this is the time of year to plant your pumpkins, all right? So I will definitely probably post a video on planting pumpkins and my pumpkin trellis. If that's something you're interested in, let me know in the comments. And if you have any specific questions about varieties that you should grow in Tennessee, definitely let me know. I have grown so many varieties. My favorite are typically, I like, Long Island, the Long Island cheese pumpkin. So it looks like a wheel of cheese, and it is a gorgeous pumpkin. It's kind of like smooth skin, and it tastes so good, and I always plant that one out. And then I also really love the little pumpkins. So there's some pumpkins called Casperita, which are like little tiny white pumpkins, and I use that in garden workshops a lot, and I'll make little succulent pumpkins. 10 out of 10, do a video on that as well. But just highly recommend. Those are not so much for eating, those are for cutes, and I am so okay with that. Next up, berries. So my berries are looking tragic because I planted them this year, so I don't have a ton of berries to show for it. but this is the time that you're going to want to be actively harvesting your blackberries. A lot of blackberries in Tennessee come in at this time, so it's really important that you're harvesting those blackberries, boop, 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 so that you keep those guys going and coming, make sure and preserve them. Again, the goal is eating things fresh as we can, but preserving all the harvest so that you can continue to enjoy it for seasons to come. Not for seasons to come. Well, I mean, I guess it is for seasons to come, but like really the season that is coming is winter, and that's the whole goal, is to have some food for winter. So yeah, those are just a few of the garden tasks I am doing in July. The biggie is just making sure that the garden is staying well hydrated and happy and harvested. Remember, as you harvest these plants, most of them, like the zucchini and the tomatoes, what you're doing when you're removing these fruits from the plants is you're opening up space for that to produce more and more and more produce, meaning your garden is more and more prolific. So if you can keep your garden harvested, you can actually end up growing a lot more food in the same amount of space than someone who has a garden that they are not staying on top of the harvest stuff. So this is a lot of what I'm doing. I also like to plant out some other fallish items at this time, just to make sure my garden keeps on going and growing. Some things that we are not doing in July. We do not try and get perennial plants established in July. We don't do it. It's so hot. It's so hard to keep them hydrated and established. So like if you see someone planting out fruit trees in July in Tennessee, oh Bessie, oh Bessie. If you do that, use the bucket trick, get a 5-gallon bucket, drill a hole in the bottom, keep that bucket filled, keep it right by that base of the tree, and do not let that bucket dry. But I do not recommend that, so do not do that, please, okay? But let me know what you're doing in your garden. I know Tennessee is a really unique growing zone. We are just mild enough that we get to really have a nice long growing season, but we're just cold enough that a lot of these cold weather crops we can still grow here. And we can't grow any of like these really cool tropical crops. I am so jealous of all y'all people growing citrus, okay? I am gonna try and grow a kiwi this year, but you know, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, I hope this was really helpful for you. As always, be sure, like, subscribe, definitely leave us some comments below, share the channel. It's really gonna help me out. My goal is to get better and improve and create more amazing garden content and show up for you as much as possible and help you build your garden, particularly if you're in the Tennessee area or in my growing zone, because let me just say, Tennessee is its own breed. It is so humid out here. Literally, I am swimming. Oh my gosh. I feel like I fake swim very well on camera, okay? But until next time, definitely look out for those seed starting videos and those pumpkin videos. And if you are unsure about what you should consider doing in your garden this time of year, I am going to link down a UT Extension calendar that will help break down month by month what you should be considering doing in your garden for your standard average home vegetable and produce gardeners. So be sure and click that link, give me a subscribe, hit the alert bell so you know when new videos come out, and I will see you next time. Yeah.